Hi everyone, and welcome to another 5 minutes of British literature to supplement our reading this week. Let's talk about religion and the church in medieval society. The Roman Catholic Church was one of the wealthiest and most powerful institutions in medieval England. During much of the late Middle Ages, the church owned a fourth of the land in England. It had its own civil service and justice system where it handled legal matters related to the clergy and to church functions and services. It was well integrated with the state, and clergy members served in royal government positions at all levels. By the 14th century, it included thousands of parish churches and hundreds of monastic houses for monks and nuns. And of course, it wielded tremendous influence among the lay people of England. Religious practices among the lay people varied by region, socioeconomic class, and urbanization, but for the most part, the English were very active in their local churches and in the wider institution. In the 1300s, the English laity managed the upkeep and a lot of the government of their parish churches. They organized church events. Finances permitting, they contributed to the maintenance of monastic houses. They established almshouses and religious charities. And they formed parish guilds that allowed them to engage in a lot of the devotional life of the monastics, but without the seclusion. Lay people tended to take their models of piety from monks, friars, and nuns, and they created a lot of ways to blend the monastic life of contemplation and prayer with their everyday lives. However, the 14th century saw multiple scandals and divisions within the church and the horrors of the Black Death. As a result, more people grew willing to challenge the church's credibility and explore forms of worship outside established church hierarchy and ritual. For the most part, the English complained about the church and criticized a lot of the skeevy practices of elite clerics, but generally stayed loyal to the institution, especially to their own parish priests. Rebellions against the church in England were not as hot as they were elsewhere in Europe, but they did exist. Lollardy gained strength in England during the mid to late 14th century. Its members believed that the church was hopelessly corrupt, that the clergy abused their powers, and that the whole institution needed to be purged of its excesses and rededicated to serving the flock. While it didn't attract a large following, Lollardy was enough of a force that it frightened church officials into cracking down on any Lollard-inspired heresy that they discovered. By contrast, effective piety did become more common in this period. This form of worship relied heavily on feeling and imagination. The point was to meditate on the humanity and suffering of Christ, or the Virgin Mary, or the saints, visualize these figures and key moments in their spiritual lives, and immerse yourself in these visions so that you could feel a direct connection with them, so that you could physically and emotionally feel their joys and their pain and their love for humanity. It was an intense, active, and personal form of worship, and it was attractive to people who were looking to take control of their own spiritual lives and form their own relationship with God. Perhaps more significant, it was accessible to a population that was mostly illiterate and generally too poor to afford a formal education. Few people could read scripture or attend university or secure a position within the church, but everyone could suffer and feel pain and pray for the empathy to use their suffering to better understand Christ's passion. While it's hard to know for sure, English women especially seem to have been drawn to this form of worship, as we see in the work of Julian of Norwich and Margery Kempe. There might be several reasons for this tendency. Women may have been drawn to religious practices that gave them a lot of flexibility in interacting with the world. Even anchoresses like Julian of Norwich had a lot of contact with the laity and were available for spiritual advisement. And for laywomen like Kempe, who could not join a monastic order, this form of worship opened doors to religious experiences and roles that they wouldn't have otherwise enjoyed. We should also consider the possibility that women found it gratifying to take the prevailing negative stereotypes of women and reimagine them as religious strengths. If women are the creatures of emotion rather than reason, then their femininity would make them better able to achieve union with God through intensity of feeling. And in that light, it may not be a coincidence that Julian and Kempe both see Christ as nurturing, gentle, and loving, all traits that were prized in women. Thanks for watching, and be sure to also watch the video on the Black Death for this week.